it is tricky. It's like I'm thankful a lot, I'm angry a lot, I'm all of these things. I want to just be honest. I'm not going to like sugarcoat.
Hello and welcome to the Keyboard Chronicles, a podcast for keyboard players. I'm your host, David Holloway, and I'm absolutely enthused to be here with you. And there's a guy that's never more enthusiastic in society than Paul Bindig. How are you?
I'm always enthusiastic, you're right. And look, we've just had a very refreshing, enthusiastic chat with our guest, I think.
Yeah, look, Frank Sacramone is an amazing player. He's part of an incredible outfit called Earthside. As you'll hear, Earthside take a really impressive approach to the way they both compose and perform. I think it's fair to say, Paul, and I know I would kill to see them if they came out our way.
Yeah, they just looking at videos of them, they have a very high energy stage presence. And as David said, they have a slightly unusual, unconventional approach to performance, which I don't think I'll reveal here. We'll let you listen to it on the podcast. But
absolutely.
Yeah, they would be very cool to see in the flesh, no doubt.
And the other incentive to listen the whole way through is Frank actually provides some really impressive and honest answers on issues that we all face as keyboard players. And all of our guests have always been exceedingly forthright and honest, but it doesn't get much more forthright and honest than some of the stuff Frank says. So well worth a listen just for that alone. So yeah, we'll let you go in and listen, and we'll talk to you after the show. Frank, it's great to see you, and thanks for joining us this evening. Yeah, really appreciate you taking the time. How's things?
It's going all right. You know, I had a little bit of a tough start to the year. I had to have some surgery on my nose because I haven't been able to breathe well my whole life. So I came into this year saying, like, you know, I don't want to be on stage with like my mouth gaping open, like sucking for air. You know, another time, you know, we're ready to move on, 2025, ready to breathe clearly and be able to put in some even harder cardio than I already do when I'm performing.
And it's worked well, Frank. You feel like a new man now that you can breathe?
I'm getting there. Still some inflammation, but I'm sleeping a little bit better, and it's a little more comfortable. So I think over the course of the year, we're on a good track.
As you know, things like that usually come down to genetics. So let's talk about your upbringing and blame other people for things in your upbringing. So let's talk about what got you into music in the first place, Frank. What developed a passion for it for you?
Well, those are slightly two different questions, which are interesting. The first question being is I don't even remember starting music because my parents handed me a violin when I was 4 years old, and I didn't even have a conscious memory of even when I started music. So I started music very, very young. And I think that's why I kind of like have a bit of like a linguistic relationship with music. Like it's like you feel the language just as your upbringing, you learn your language. You know, it was like from that young of a time, you know, I feel connected to it, even though I wasn't conscious of, you know, when I started. And then like I guess the passion, you know, that stuff probably started more when I was like around like, I want to say like 11 or 12 years old. You know, I would just practice music because I think I had like some level of aptitude. You know, I wasn't like a prodigy, but I had some skills, and I always had like a pretty good ear. And when I was super young, I'd always be like, even in the baby seat in the car, you know, I'm always like this to the music. Like I can't stop moving when I hear music, any genre, I am moving. I think it's really when I realized that like a person could create their own music is really when things like I feel like clicked for me. You know, I didn't love practicing classical music. I mean, there's plenty of beautiful pieces, like don't get me wrong. I played some really interesting repertoire, you know, growing up playing classical. But it was like really when you could like be like, oh, I can create this now. So Jamie, the guitarist, we've actually been friends since I was like 7 years old. And we actually like started writing songs as early as like between 10 and 12 years old. And we just hit the tape recorder in the living room, and he would come over and we'd jam. And you know, that's kind of like where it started. I also got like this old Yamaha like $100 keyboard where you could like play along to like the presets, and if you like play a chord, it does an accompaniment for that chord. And once I like discovered you could like do that and then write a melody over it, and I was like, whoa, this is what's cool about music. So that kind of changed my like interest from like just like playing music to that like being a writer, a producer, like making your own music, all of that stuff. So yeah, that's where more the passion stuff started to come in for music.
Yeah, that's great. And so it sounds like you had two things going in parallel there. You just mentioned playing classical. So just tell us a little bit about what lessons or other education you were having, and then how you developed your creative side as well, say up until, leaving school.
Yeah, definitely. So as far as like my more like academic background in music, yeah, I started in classical violin from when I was like 4 until like 14, about let's say 10 years. And then I picked up piano when I was like 6 or 7. So I was actually studying violin and piano classically at the same time, and it was a lot. Violin's an extremely difficult instrument. It was just like I kind of just at some point was like, I don't really love this instrument, but I'm going to stick with piano. And honestly, I know I'm going to skip around a lot. That's just how I am. But learning the violin really like gave me a lot of dimension and like thought process into like composing and like understanding like strings and the emotive side of those kind of instruments. And kind of playing in orchestras and stuff kind of fed my brain like these denser arrangements and bigger things that would then kind of lead to where we are now with like Earthside. So yeah, I played in orchestras. I, studied solo violin, and then yeah, I kept going with classical throughout high school. I studied, I did AP music theory in high school, all of that. I did a little bit of composition lessons, but a lot of stuff was self-taught. I would say like Jamie and I like kind of just like pushed each other, and we both like kind of like found our way. I mean, our parents didn't know, like you couldn't get like recording lessons or production lessons. I mean, we were recording like DI into like these digital disc mixers that like it was janky. Like our old demos, you'd never think like these guys are going to produce something like epic in the future. It's just like these ridiculous like metal zone direct into like a digital mix. It was horrible, but like we always like tried and pursued the creativity. I think that is an advantage of growing up at a time where you just didn't have all these YouTube tutorials and stuff. Like you really had to push yourself to create something, not to put any like blame on the new artists and young artists. It was a different thing. And you can definitely learn a lot from not having a lot and having to find your way. And so I basically kept doing like piano study until, my first and last year of Berkeley College of Music. So I went there for my first year of college, and I did not want to like study piano in any formal way and not have that be studied like at all. I just didn't have the drive and the interest, and so I kind of finished like my final level of repertoire was like, I think, my Berkeley audition piece was Allegro Barbaro by Bela Bartok. Pretty like crazy song, which was pretty aggressive and cool. Definitely suited like my style and my flair, but that was kind of like where I reached the height of my level in classical piano.
No, that's brilliant. And I suppose it leads to my next question of how did you go from doing that at Berkeley to, it sounds like, as you said, Jamie was a friend from an early age, to the formation of Earthside.
Yeah, so Jamie, Ben, and I actually started what was Earthside. And there was a bassist from the school Jamie and I went to. I'd met Ben in my freshman year of high school, and we went to school together freshman and sophomore year. Then I transferred back to my old school, which I'd gone to with Jamie. And then we all just kind of like Captain Planet, like combined forces. And yeah, so that was kind of like the early formation. We were called Bushwhack. It was like an instrumental, more like experimental, weird, like Dream Theater-esque kind of vibe to it. It wasn't necessarily like ended up being the music we really were like 100% passionate about, but it ended up in a way being an incredible exercise in just learning about music because every song was so random, but we wanted to try everything. Like nothing was off the table, and it was just about like pushing ourselves to see what elements we could combine in the craziest ways and not holding back and not feeling like, you can't do this, you can't do that. I have to stick to this specific genre trope and I have to do this. And so as time went on, we kind of abandoned the Bushwhack project for various reasons. And we basically wrote the song, The Closest I've Come, somewhere around 2010. And we were like, okay, I think we found our place. I think we found what we were looking for as artists. And that's when we kind of like made the transition to Earthside. Ryan, the bassist, was a friend of a friend. Yeah, kind of a friend of a friend situation. One of our friends was dating this girl and her brother is Ryan. So he was like, "Oh, my brother, he goes to Hart School of Music, which is a well established conservatory in Connecticut, music conservatory." We gave him a shot and we were like, "Yeah, we need this guy." So yeah, that's how Earthside kind of began.
Yeah, well, which is an amazing story, right? As you said, the friendships you formed in school, they're still your friends now, and indeed your work colleagues. And I was just sort of thinking about, I think most of us who do music, we probably at a young age were in various bands, and you have big dreams and big ideas, and we probably all think, one of the first bands we're in we might make it. And I don't know if anyone ever really makes it, but at some point you went from, here we are with these young guys, we think we've got a cool concept, we've got some music we love, and now you're doing the thing. You're actually doing the thing. And in Earthside, for our viewers and listeners, are about to kick off, I believe, an date headline US tour. So, and so you've had some good success and probably plenty more ahead of you. So my question, Frank, is when did you know? Did it just happen organically, or did you always believe you would be doing the thing? Or at some point did you go, hang on, no, this is happening. This is real for us. Tell us about that development and that evolving.
That's a great question. And honestly, the answer I want to say is it's like I'm like, am I doing it? That's I I definitely feel like we can do this. Like we can get it out there. And honestly, I thought, maybe naively kind of thought that like the industry would kind of go this way. We make this like undeniable record that is like everything we can pour in our lives into this, a dream in static. We work tirelessly for 5 years to put it out. And then we will become like the next porcupine tree. And it didn't happen. It's not how the world works. So as far as the music goes, I mean, I think there is a lot of self-belief within Earthside. I think we feel that we have achieved the best of what we could offer, as people, as musicians, as philosophizers, whatever. And I think the hard part is like the industry part and reflecting on, have I really made it? Have I really made an impact? Am I doing something, that's gonna like I can focus on as a career and all this stuff. And in a weird way, I guess at 36 years old, and this is our first headline run, maybe we're just starting. You could make an argument like this is kind of the beginning for Earthside, even though, for example, Jamie and I, it's already been 22 years of our life making music. So I think for me, I always feel conflicted because I feel like we've done something really cool with the music, but yet the outside acclaim isn't it's not like, we're selling out things in a second or whatever. Or that like every post that goes up, it's like, oh, Porcupine Tree is the best band of, the year 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2000, all the way up to 2025. And it's like, yeah, it is tricky. It's like I'm thankful a lot, I'm angry a lot, I'm all of these things. I want to just be honest. I'm not going to like sugarcoat like,
That's amazing.
and just be like, yeah, it's everything's like, I got to put up a face for everyone who's listening out there. It's like and we all know, and I'm sure all the listeners know, like being a musician is such a complex life, and we have such complex emotions, and that's what makes it tough but beautiful. It's like it's all of those things. I don't know if that really answered your question, but that's kind of just,
it answered it beautifully, Frank.
Yeah.
And the highs are so high, but the lows can be so low as well.
exactly.
I feel like your honesty is really appreciated, and your vulnerability. But I feel like you're selling yourself a bit short because you have achieved a lot, and I agree with you. I think there's probably a lot to come ahead for your band. But what I would love to do is bring our listeners and viewers a little bit closer to your band, who may not have heard you before. You described yourself just now as a prog band. Putting labels on bands it's something I don't like doing because it can put them into a box, but it is helpful to attract new people to the sort of music you do. So can you describe the music of Earthside to someone who may not have heard it before?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just use the word progressive rock, but like I would call, we branded ourselves when we came out. I think the most apt branding is cinematic rock. I mean, that's who we are at a core, is telling a story. It's less about like there is a lot of technicality, but the technicality is in the details. And it's not the technicality of the guitar playing or the keyboard playing. It's in every detail of the production, every transition between each part of music. It's a carefully constructed thing. So, we are a rock band. We have heavy riffs. There is metal in there, but at our core, we're also cinematic. The influences in our lives, the strings, the arranging in that way, the kind of study of orchestration, like Jamie's experience is more in the orchestration and theory, and for me it's the production, and I focus a lot on like how to put emotion into sound waves, and like I'm very focused on specific timbres of things and how that makes a listener feel. And, and Ben is very conscious about like the flow and the rhythm and not making anything feel, I feel like Ben's like the anti-corny guy. Like he doesn't like try to, I don't know. He almost is like, he's like the technical guy of the band and just kind of like allows there to have the technicalities shine through, while Jamie and I are more about the atmosphere and the chord progressions and the density within that. So like everyone's kind of playing together, and Ryan is exceptionally like rhythmic oriented and has such a good way of locking with Ben and just kind of like being loud and growly when he needs to, and laid back and delayed. So like it really is like a cinematic experience in terms of, like I said, the Earthside's goal is to tell a story, to tell our story, to tell our emotions. And I do think there's a lot of different like bands who follow kind of something like that in progressive music. I mean, I do think our music is progressive as the word progressive, but I would never call our band like a prog rock band in the traditional sense of a prog rock band. So yeah, I can try more adjectives, but that's what I got for now.
That's brilliant.
Great,
and Frank,
thank you.
I do want to ask you, I mean, across the two albums you've released, I mean, they're incredible pieces of work, and you mentioned yourself that you spent 5 years essentially working on A Dream in Static. Just tell us about how you've developed as a band writing this stuff. What are you coming to the party already written? How are you working it up in the studio? And I also know you have lots of guest singers and other people join too. So just tell us how you approach that.
Yeah, well, I think there's been a lot we've learned, even though it's two albums. Like I mean, essentially, like, for example, Let the Truth Speak, it's like essentially like 8 or 9 independent album productions. Like each song is essentially an album, but it's like took 8 years. So it's like, you know, the needs and production needs and writing needs of Let the Truth Speak versus All We Knew and Never Loved versus Denial's Aria versus Tyranny. Like it's all like they're almost like independent album. I don't know the word I'm looking. You know how like some albums have like a thematic production in them, and they like use a certain type of sound and instrument. Well, but we're like doing that, but like for each song. So I mean, we do label ourselves as ambitious. I think that is an accurate term. Certainly no one can take that away from us, whether you like it or not, like the music or not. I would say that like we haven't necessarily written new music yet, but there's definitely ideas in the pipeline. So, the way I think to think about it is I think we understand priorities better. I'm using this example just as one where like, everything has to be at the maximum level. Microphone used, every instrumentalist, everything. It has to be, here or it doesn't count. And in reality, like when you're making a 300 track session, like you don't need, a $10,000 microphone on like violin 25, overdub. Like it's not going to be the front and center of the mix. Or you don't need to prioritize every single element because the mix engineer may not even care and just like do some other random thing with it. And the same goes with like certain revisions. If we nudge this one snare hit over 3 milliseconds, it's going to make the song. So let's make 10 different versions of Mob Mentality and then listen to each one that has this one snare. And then like and then you have 3 people who have to make a democratic decision that was the best move for the music. And I mean, everyone we've met thinks we're insane. I mean, we're just insane human beings. But we're also, I would say on top of that though, we're the most functional. Well, maybe you could argue that, but I think like we're also very aware. We're not like unaware that this is happening. And I think it's just like, we want a lot out of ourselves. We have big hearts, and maybe we're too like we're get too wrapped up in certain things. And especially if you have a bunch of people with OCD issues, like, yeah, it just creates like this situation where it can be a never-ending cycle. And I think we've learned a lot about this cycle and what we really can prioritize and how we can write the quality of music we need to, but do it in a way that is more functional. I mean, this new single we just dropped, I think, is a good example of, our ability to do something of a high quality in a short turnaround time. Now, granted, the song was already written a while ago, so, it was a bit easier to organize. But even in the shorter turnaround, because we've learned these lessons from before, for example, like with the drum tracking, it went like really smooth and we captured incredible sounds because of having already built the experience and also not getting too in the weeds of things that weren't ultimately going to give the listener any extra emotion or not when listening to the song.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point you make, and we're passionate about what we create, but then it can reach a point of diminishing returns where you're putting so much effort in to get so little back because you've got 99% of the job done already. So and a great lesson for all of us, I think, who are working on important projects that we're passionate about. I'm really interested, Frank, in you've got this tour coming up. And as you've told us, your music is very dense, it's very bombastic, and listeners and viewers, if you haven't picked it up, this band Earthside don't really have a lead singer. They have various guest vocalists who come in and sing on various tracks. So I'm really interested in how do you translate all of that to live performance?
That was always going to be like one of the hardest things for us. I think just, we've grown up in this kind of suburban area of Connecticut where, there's not this mecca of musicians. And I think having exposure to, top tier vocalists wasn't quite like, I don't think we had, just from the people we knew and where we were, I feel like we never had access to the person we were like looking for. So, as a band, we were like, we don't want to just like stop because like we don't have a singer. Like we have to move forward. We have to do something. So we kind of decided it's like, well, if a DJ can have guest singers and play their tracks at music festivals and do stuff, like there's also, why can't we? Or world music musicians. I used to grow up, I listened to a lot of Yanni, and, like I saw him live. I believe in Massachusetts, and when I was in high school, and it was awesome to see all these different guest performers from around the world, playing along, and it was like, why can't we do this? And I think so once we kind of like went with it, the question was always going to be like, okay, how are we going to do this live? I do think the rise of electronic music has allowed for there to be a forgiveness of backing tracks and like singers, like I said, tons of electronic music festivals where the DJs are playing their songs they've written with vocalists and they're doing it in their DJ performance. And people are used to listening to hearing the backing track of that. So I think one way we're in a time where it's become more acceptable. I won't say that it's 100% acceptable amongst all like rock listeners and rock, metal, progressive, whatever. We think that if we can still convey the emotion of the music live, people will still feel something. And when we go on stage, it's maybe we have the singer backing track, but we're incorporating it with visuals, multimedia, and us like just giving it 110%, laying it all on the line, whether it's 20 people in the audience or 1,000 or at a music festival, in the UK, it doesn't matter. We just go for it. And I think that's what people come away with. Yes, there will be some people who are just like, I can't get over this. We're not going to win everyone over. We just have to deal with it. And so, but I do think the performance we give allows people to believe that we're not just phoning this in, that like we are very invested in the music that we've made.
Well, you mentioned yourself you'll be doing a high level of cardio on stage when we started talking. So I think that's giving you all.
Have you seen any clips?
Yeah, it's a high energy performance as befits the music. As I said, it's very bombastic. It really hits you hard in the senses, and I'm sure you'll be able to deliver that. It's funny. I was reflecting on what you said. You're right. A lot of old school rock fans get very funny about tracks, but the irony is every single legacy rock band out there that's still performing all use tracks. So it's actually what's important is the performance and the passion and the emotion that's coming across. And you're playing live. You're not miming. You're actually playing live.
And just on the live front, Frank, so let's talk in two little forks here as far as your keyboard rig that you use on stage, and then also, just the physicality and what you're actually delivering on stage.
What I'm using right now as far as gear are two MIDI controllers, an A88 and A49. Shout out Roland sponsorship anywhere. And I have my AX7 guitar as well through a wireless rig. So those are the three. They're all Rolands, but I like how small and compact they are. I can fit both of them in one keyboard case because the A88 is so shallow. I can just throw pedals, everything into that. And then I have three outboard modules. I have the classic Motif rack, the Motif XS, and the Integra 7. And actually, I don't really play with like a lot of our music was like made with just the sounds from those modules. There are like VSTs that I've used, but like the core of the sound like really comes from those. And I mean, I'm 36, but like honestly, I'm a boomer, and I think that like the rack, like the actual like hardware keyboards, like I just, every time I sit down and play something, it's just good. Like with VSTs, I don't get the same experience. And I think, I don't know if it has to do with the fact that, like, as a manufacturer, like, you're putting yourself on the line by offering hardware. Like, you have to make the sounds inspiring. Like, you have to make the person inspired to play this. And I'm also, maybe some people hate me for it, but like, I love presets. Like, I just want to make the music. I'm not as much of a tweaker, but I am OCD about what sounds I choose. I will go through thousands of patches. I won't stop. I won't stop until I find the one. And even if a Yamaha keyboard has 3,000 sounds, I'll be like, there's only 5 I want to use, and that 5 will make the record. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So all of my patch changes are automated through Ableton, and the rest of our show is automated. So I don't have to change any patches. It will change it all for me and switch between keyboards that I need it to. So like guitar to 88 key to 49 key, like it'll all change around. So it's a nifty little setup that works well for me. I can jump into the performance, but any questions on like the gear stuff?
No, I mean, I think it's great, and all jokes about Roland sponsorship. Those A series keyboards are just amazing. I mean, I owned an A70 years ago, loved it. They're just amazingly robust and great boards. So I can see why you're using them. So no, go for it, Frank. In the performance,
I think it's still that I have the same one since like 2015 or 16. So it's like it's got a few scratches, but it's like it's fine. But yeah, and then like, just approaching, was a question about like how I'm approaching the performance.
Yeah.
I'll start here. I think when I was in high school, like, and this probably came from insecurity, that like, you know, the keyboardist is just the dude in the back and no one cares about them. As Ben calls me, backing tracks, that like, you know, like like keyboard just means backing tracks. So like we'll joke, like we have a mix and he'll be like, man, I wish they turned up the backing tracks in the song here. It'd be a little bit better. But there's some truth. That's why it's funny, because as a keyboardist, everyone has experienced this probably in their lifetime, right? Everyone's nodding their head. So I don't know, from a very young age, I just like had this fire in me. Like, I'm such an extroverted person, and it's weird to have the keyboard as my instrument. Like, I have the personality of a lead singer or a guitarist, like lead guitarist, but I'm stuck behind a keyboard. And I see Jordan Rudess, you know, circling around. I'm like, I don't know. That's not like for me. I need something more. And I think I was like one of the first, like, I wasn't the first person to do this, but like as far as like people I knew in the general like music scene around Connecticut and for my age, you know, I found like this one company was making these wireless like MIDI rigs. And so I bought a guitar, and I kind of just like had this idea. It's like, I'm not going to be the dude in the back. Like, I want people to feel my presence. And I'm always someone who's also genuinely like, when I hear music, like I have to express myself. Like I was saying earlier, when I hear something, I'm nodding my head, I'm tapping, I'm always like engaged. And I'm also just a highly emotional person. Like when I'm going crazy, it's like kind of for the show, but it is me. Like it is what I want to say. And like, I want you to feel what I feel. And so the way my performance, like I've done, is like, I'm just firing all the time, like on all cylinders. I bring the guitar out, I jump off the stage, I act like, you know, a lead guitarist. And I want people to see, it's like, I'm here, I'm playing something, I'm not the dude in the background. And so I always like had that kind of chip on my shoulder for a long time. And I've honed it, I guess, to the point where like now, you know, people will, you know, say, it's like, yeah, I saw your show and you're like the front man of the band. And it's like, who calls a keyboardist the front man of the band? You know, so that's kind of a mission of mine since I was young. And I feel like I kind of found my way with it. And I think keyboardists, like, there's a lot of opportunity to express yourself. You just have to like really be willing to put yourself out there and not like feel like you're just like the dude sitting in the corner, like,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always jumping around. I'm always trying to find creative ways to be expressive. And so, yeah, it's a very like high energy thing. I go to the gym a lot. I train boxing. So I'm ready to, to jump around for 90 minutes of cardio.
Great.
Well, in the interest of self-disclosure, Frank, I'm also an extroverted keyboardist, and so on behalf of all extroverted keyboardists, I thank you for showing the world that we can also be seen as well as be heard. David is not an extroverted
No,
keyboardist.
I love a corner. I do love a corner, but I do
Okay,
love
no, I want no shade, David. No shade, okay?
but I do love the boxing stuff because I've been thinking of doing that because if you've got boxing chops, you can punch guitarists more easily. It's good. So I like that. Now
I haven't given Jamie my right hook yet, but
make sure you capture it on video if you do. But Frank, that's an amazing perspective on both parts of the performance and really, really appreciate that. And obviously when you're performing at such a high level, sometimes things will go wrong. So have you got an anecdote of where you've had a massive train wreck on stage that you can
my God,
laugh
man.
about now?
Last year at Radar Festival in the UK, man, this was like our biggest show to date. And on festivals, you don't get a sound check. So, and I'm responsible for the tech and the rig of the band. So, I put the thing on stage, set everything up, we're gearing up and like literally like none of the tracks are going to the PA. Everything is totally like screwed up. And I was just so heartbroken, man. I won't try to make this a long story, but basically, we had to start the set. So we just started it anyway. Luckily, we still had a click track. The first minute we open with We Who Lament, and I'm just like, people expect me to be, my hair flying around, and I'm just sitting at the keyboard like this. Like, I'm just so dejected. And I just like, I know in my heart, like, I'm here for a bigger purpose. Like I have to, people paid money, people want to see the bands that they like engage in their music. And just because like this is a one-off bad day, like they don't deserve for me to be in this state of mind. It's just not, I don't know, like just like a lot, that voice, as that first minute is going by, it's like, I'm just feeling like, it's like, I don't want to play. Like, I don't want to play. But then I'm like, but like, I have some friends in the audience and like people are here to see us. And like maybe something we play or do could inspire someone. And then maybe they do something really cool because of that. Not saying that like I'm anything special, but like anyone can be inspired by anything,
That's
right?
right.
And especially if it's like a band you like and you paid to see, and it's like, man, like they did something cool this way. And then you find a new way to do something cool with that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you're sitting there thinking like, all right, I have to be the bigger person and like get back to how I do things, bring the energy back and be a professional and get through the show. But man, I sometimes things like that, it breaks my heart, man. Like when things go wrong and like, I want the audience to hear what we have to play. But, and then we some people like actually really enjoyed the show in spite of like certain technical things that weren't working. And, like we were talking about earlier, if you put your emotions out there and things are still going wrong, people will appreciate you. It's just like a person who like maybe they're not like the most successful person in the world outwardly, but like if you see that they're trying hard and like they put themselves into something, like you're always like, oh, that dude's cool. Like he may not have like $10 million, but like that dude is where it's at. Like he or she, whoever, they, doesn't matter. Like whatever they do, it's like they're cool because like they're actually like they're trying, they're bringing something to the table. But that was a hard one for me. That was really
hard. And that's brilliant honesty. And I reckon you've probably inspired, talking about inspiring other people, you probably inspired a bunch of people just with that explanation of that train wreck. So how did Frank, did you have to play the whole show without the other stuff working?
Yeah. So the radar show, yeah. So like, you know how we have the guest vocal, like none of the vocal tracks were playing. So there was no it was like We Who Lament instrumental, Let the Truth Speak instrumental, like, but and without some of the other key like elements to it, maybe some of the orchestral things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I think in the future I'm gonna be more able to handle this, and thinking about it, like I just said, like, like people will appreciate you if you put your heart into something. They see that you're trying and that you're really like there to be there.
And I assume you still had a good response in spite of all that, by the sound of that, Frank, and that's a testament to the skills of all of you.
Yeah, I think the core of our, we write this music in our rehearsals, and it's just the four of us, right? You don't have all these layers, so the fundamentals of the song are always like still there. The melodies, the thematic elements, like, because these songs, like, these are written before all the other post production stuff, ends up on it. So we always hope that like the core of the song still tells the story, even if it's stripped down.
I think you've taught us all a great lesson too, for all of us listening. I mean, your audience deserves all of you every single time, no matter what you might be going through at that particular point. So credit to you and your team. And as David said, it sounds like you had a great outcome. One of the questions we ask all our guests, Frank, is we ask you to tag another keyboard player. And what that means is there another keyboard player that you would love to know more about, that you maybe admire or are inspired by, that you think would be a great guest for this podcast?
A couple people have come to mind. One of them, I'm guessing, will be impossible to reach out to them, but I wouldn't necessarily call him a keyboardist, but in the range of like keyboardy things, I'm like fascinated by like how Skrillex does his production, how he does his synths. Like, it's so interesting to me. Everything's like, it's loud, and like the production just hits. Like when I went to his like stuff like a long time ago, like it was just crazy. I would love to know like how they're doing certain things and like producing the stuff like behind the scenes, because like I'm just fascinated by that. I think like an underrated, the Textures Keyboardist. The stuff isn't always up in the front, but like it's like there's just a nice backdrop in every song that just like it just pulls everything together. Like I would say that was really cool. And honestly, I don't know, have you guys talked with Vikram Shankar?
No.
He performs with various bands. He's like played some shows with Pain of Salvation. And but the thing that he does that I like is he's like does reimaginings of like songs, and like a band I've worked with. He did like piano versions, like reimagined versions of certain things. And I think like he has like a really cool sense of music in that way, and like expressing his emotions through that. Really, right. Really nice guy. I've talked with him a bit, and I think he would have some cool things to say on Brilliant. The podcast.
No, thank you. They're great picks all around. And Skrillex is one I'd never thought of. I love that idea. I'll see what we can do. So no, that's great. And then the other super easy question for you, Frank, is the Desert Island Discs. So 5 albums you would find it hard to live without.
Okay. Well, this is a great question, because the first album I have to say, because this is a dream of mine to do this, which is to go to a remote island in the Pacific and listen to Carnival's Asymmetry at night on a full moon on the beach from front to back. That's going to happen in my lifetime.
There's one.
Super underrated record, but there's just something about it that just like, it's so real. I actually got to talk with Drew Goddard, the guitarist, at Radar about this, and I don't think I was correct in what I imagined the record to be, but what I told him was that I always felt like the album was like such a backlash against the like very digital sounding progressive metal that was coming out during the early 2010s. And, everything Superior Drummer, VST, everything. And it just sounded very artificial. And that album was like, we're going to go so raw and like not backwards in like in a bad way, but like kind of just like have this raw record that just, flies in the face of everything that's happening in, the rock and metal scene. So that's going to be on my albums. Probably that, man, this is so hard. It's either going to be Fear of a Blank Planet or In Absentia, one of those. Man, I know. The Gladiator soundtrack by Hans Zimmer. That was one of the most influential albums for me. Gotta have something different. I listen to a lot of rap music. Not a lot of people know that, but like it's like in my blood to bob my head and just to do this. That's my thing. I can't think of one, but probably some 3-6 Mafia record. Because I own all of their CDs. It's just so random. I'm like into the vibe. And then what else would I throw in there? I'm going to stop there because otherwise you guys will be sitting here like, for the entirety of the day. So I will spare you. But
that's great. No, they've 4 great picks and no, that's excellent. Thank you. And then our last question is actually a 10-part one, Frank. So in we call it our quick fire, 10 short and sharp questions.
All right.
First album you recall hearing?
Album. Man, what was like one of my first... Dude, this is a hard one. This is really hard. I can't say.
It's okay to admit it was Barney the Dinosaur, Frank.
No, but like, do you mean like song or like album?
It could be whatever you want. Doesn't matter.
I feel like the first song like I really remember is like my mom used to like play this like Rod Stewart album. So like, I'm going to just go with like, no, you know what it was? Fantasia, the movie, nice. The original Disney Fantasia.
Yeah, there you go.
Apparently, I broke sorry, I'm not rapid firing because I have to explain everything because I'm too detail oriented. So I broke the what do you call it? The tape, the VCR, tape, the videotape, because I played it so many times, and that was the first music I really remember that I like internalized and like that I heard, and it's that's what it is.
My oldest son loved Fantasia too when he was a little fella. So he's a bit younger than you, Frank. He's 25, but
but still an incredible like way music. To get into music. Yeah, like so imaginative.
Yeah, the way it's presented is perfect, I think. What's your most important pre-gig ritual?
I have to eat. If I am the most hangry person on earth, and the most important thing is that I'm well fed. And the band will attest to this. Ask anyone. Nothing goes right if I'm hungry. Yeah. So, and I like having clean socks too. As long as I have some nice, clean socks that feel good on my feet and food, I'm ready to go.
Clean socks,
burn some calories. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Now, Frank, if you hadn't been a musician, what do you think your career choice would have been?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Like, I feel like it could have been different things. Like, I've always liked like strategic things. So like maybe something with like business, or like I kind of like finance stuff too. I don't know. I just like complicated stuff. But yeah, something like that. Or I could see myself like going the opposite way and like kind of like doing some kind of like hippie, like teaching English around the world and just going to different cultures. And I love travel. So I love learning something. I love learning about myself. And it's one of the things that maybe even supersedes music for me is like the people that I know around the world, the community that I have, like is maybe the most important thing I have in obviously my friends and family, but like that included. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And on the subject of travel, what's the favorite tour you've ever done?
Because we took such a long break, So we kind of just like got back into it by the end of 2022, and then we had taken a break from like 2016. And but I feel like I would probably go with the Europe tour with Leprous and Voyager. But I also just because it was like our first Europe, not because I don't like any of the other bands or anything, because like I've had a lot of good times with the other tours, but because it was also like a tour bus tour where like everyone was together. It was a little bit more social. Like on some of these newer ones, it's like everyone's a little bit more separated. But I really enjoyed like everyone being together. It was like, us, Leprous, Voyager, we're all like goofing around, playing the shows, like seeing Europe. I think as that being a first like experience was like super, super cool. And it's been like back to the Sprinter van for the rest of the tours, like banished from the tour bus. But maybe we'll get back there. We're getting back there.
Frank, what's your favorite gig that you've played, if that's possible?
My favorite show was that show because like we showed up to a place we'd never been before, and people showed up like for us for Earthside because we never played like a headline show like apart from like where our hometown is and everything. And like these like a bunch of people showed up. The energy was just so high. Like people were singing along, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so cool." In spite of all my self-doubt and like, oh, we only got 60 people. Like there's something in me that's like seeing everyone just be there and like recognize like, wow, Earthside is like a band that like people appreciate. And like the energy was just so high. Like everyone was so hyped in this like small little room. And I think I like was very emotional after the performance. I was like kind of like in tears. Like it just was like, it was really cool to like get to experience that for the first time, like go somewhere and like there are some people who care about what I'm doing and like wanting to share that and just being there. I think to this day that will always be like one of the most memorable gigs that I've played.
It's a beautiful story. What's the favorite city you've ever played, Frank?
Favorite city, this is just straight off the top of my head because maybe I have a different answer that I would have changed later. Like in the US, like Boston like really shows up. Also Montreal, like a split decision. Maybe Montreal, like just like the people are just like so engaged. Like as far as like the US, Boston, Canada, Montreal, like it's just like kind of hits different. Like it seems like there's like a real investment in like the music and like and even being a different kind of band. Like there's like this passion that's there.
Great.
And you can even see it in the ticket sales. It's like they just come out like, and it's really cool. Like I like playing those two cities a lot.
Great. And last but not least, your favorite non-musical activity or hobby. What keeps you sane outside of music?
Man, it has to be travel. Like that's my thing. Like I said, super extroverted. I love to meet people. I love to have a new experience and perspective. And just like I think like part of touring and traveling and everything, it's just like a sense of adventure. And that's one of the biggest passions of mine.
Yeah, no, look, I think that sense of adventure is well and truly reflected in the amazing music you are producing through Earthside and elsewhere, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time. And we'd love to meet you down under at some stage when hopefully you get down here on a tour. But can't thank you enough tonight for your time, Frank. It's hugely appreciated.
Oh, thank you guys. You asked some good questions, and I just tried to, I fumble along, but sometimes I get on track and say a few interesting
It was brilliant.
things.
So, Paul, as I said before the show, I love Frank's honesty on a number of issues. It was really great chatting with him.
Yeah, it's always nice when our guests are really generous with their emotions and their vulnerability. And look, we all we all have these vulnerabilities and the highs and lows of playing music and putting yourself out there in your art and hoping people like it and will respond to it, particularly when it's been your life's work and passion, I think.
That's right. Whereas my life's work and passion is to find a good corner at a gig. But, that's just me. So,
that was fun.
It was great talking to Frank, and hugely appreciate his time. And if you are in the US, do check out the tour, and obviously around the world, check out Earthside's albums. They are quite incredible, particularly if you are a prog or orchestral rock or cinematic rock fan. This stuff you will lap up. It's absolutely amazing. So, huge thank you to everyone out there for listening. As always, quick shout out to our gold and silver supporters, Tammy Catcher from Tammy's Musical Stew. Thank you, Tammy, as always. The wonderful Ed from Elk Electronic. If you need synth repairs done in the Australian context, then Ed is your guy. Elk Electronic with a K on both the electronic and the elk. You'll find them easily online. And last but not least, Dave and the team from the musicplayer.com forums. The Keyboard Corner is one of the best places to go on the internet to talk keyboard.
It's where we met, David.
Exactly right. What else would you want in life? So, no, thank you all out there for listening. Thank you, sir, as always, for joining me. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, keep on playing.